Well, good morning, everybody. I've got two tasks to do in a very short space of time, so I hope I cover it sufficiently, each one. One of the things that John asked us to do as part of what you saw yesterday, those 17 or whatever it was things, was capsize, but it never seemed to do anything. So being an ex-merchant Navy officer, I decided we'd do something about it. And I've just done a quick figures, and it's important that we follow on from what we've heard this morning. I've got two items to come out of the two previous presentations. First of all, the capsize. And I'm not talking what's happening with Syria and stuff we saw on the TV this morning on the news. I'm talking about commercial vessels operating around the world. In the last 12 months, I'm going up to the 31st of December, there were 79 incidents involving ships, one of which was only a catamaran, but it's a large tourist one, so I've classified it as a ship. So out of that, there was 1,692 people missing or killed. These are ships I'm talking about. That's 32 a week. How many were rescued? 2,511. That's 48 per week. Okay? 15 of the 79 incidents included ships and a catamaran. 3 of those incidents involved cyclones. The things I was talking about yesterday, the tsunami, the big waves, the cyclones we get in the Pacific, and of course in Asia as well. The causes of some of these, and I want you to think about this if you're involved with shipping at all, are containers. Are you being honest about the weight you've got in that shipping container? If you work for a company, go back from this meeting and start talking with them, because we have major incidences with overweight containers. And as of last year, the International Maritime Organization have now said to all their members, which your countries no doubt belong to, that they're going to stop containers on the wharf and send them back to you if you don't pack them properly. So I really would like you to go away. We've had many instances of ships capsizing. We had one in Fiji, a very bad one called the Robonosk, a Russian ship left Sydney, Australia, bound for New Caledonia. The place was on strike. He went to Suva. To get into Suva, you have to go over a little bit of a reef to get into the harbour. The captain did his paperwork. He said, I can pump the bilge water out of my tanks. I'll be fine and still be stable. We took 2 shipping containers off and the ship fell over at 45 degrees. We took them off one by one and weighed them. On average, they were 5 tons more than the paperwork said. Multiply that by 26 on deck, not below, on deck, 130 ton we knew nothing about. And that's just one instance. 2 containers taken off, the thing just fell over. So please think about it. For those of us from New Zealand here today, we'll remember the Rena. She was a ship that ran onto a reef in Tauranga, trying to take a shortcut to get in before the port closed for the day. On her, she had 52 containers of dangerous goods. 23 were not declared. They were smuggled. So we've got major concerns at sea about overweight containers and the smuggling of dangerous goods. Want figures? See me afterwards. I'll provide them for you. So those are the kind of things. On the smaller boats, and some of the bigger boats have to get across what we call a bar. And I'm not talking about a thing like that. I'm talking over into the port of Manukau or into other places. And we have a DVD here, which some of you can have a look at if you like later on with me, which talks about how smaller boats get across the bar and how they broach. And I've got some case situations there. So I don't unfortunately have the time to show you it all here, but if you're interested, come and see me afterwards and I'll play it for you. What causes a capsize? Okay, the changing of what we call a GM, the geometric meridian, the point of balance of that vessel. And that can be caused, as I say, by things like overweight containers. We had a bad one on the about a fortnight ago. I was in a place called New Plymouth for a family gathering. And the sea was calm. We're looking out the airport departure lounge. It was flat calm. The next day, what happened? 2 people drowned. When I left New Zealand about a week ago, they hadn't found the second body, but the 34-year-old and a teenager went out to clear their crayfish pots. And they were told, don't go out, it's not safe. Oh, yeah, okay. And they went. Life jackets in the boat, not worn. The 34-year-old swam back to shore. The teenager, as far as we know, is still missing. Water temperature, 14 degrees Celsius. So you can see for your own mind what it's about. Okay. The other thing we have a problem with is beam seas. That's where the sea is coming across from your port or starboard side and hitting the side of the ship and the ship rolling. A ship makes 7 movements at any one time. Pounding, yawing, rolling, all that kind of thing happens. And a lot of people don't appreciate that when they pack their goods in a shipping container. They think, oh, it won't move, it's heavy. Believe you me, it will move. Okay, so those are the kind of things that we've got to be careful. Going back to a couple of years ago to the America's Cup, I think most of you who have followed that would have seen the New Zealand boat go right up on its ear and then miraculously got itself back onto its 2 keels again. Don't ask me how, but they managed it. Okay, now I'd just like to move on from that then. If you're wanting more detail of those shipping incidents, I've broken them down into categories of what happened. There are a couple there which they don't have any detail on, but I have got the details in back there with me today. So there you go. So let's move on to the second part. The community involvement in life jackets and drownings and things like this. I want you to think fairly wide. I want you to think of Asia Pacific region, APR, okay? Huge area, goes from China to India, right across to a little place called Pitcairn Island, which is the middle of nowhere. And right now, as we're sat here today, there are 42 people on that island. That is it. It's governed by the Brits, but given to us in New Zealand to look after. And there's no airport there. So ladies, when you're ordering your food and your LP gas to cook on, you have to book it for 3 months in advance. You're going to make it last for 3 months till the ship comes back. So it's a heck of a place to get to. So we've got big numbers in the region. I'll leave this out there so you can see what we're talking about, Asia Pacific region. The populations are huge. Niue, one of our smallest nations, and apart from Pitcairn, are something like 1,300 people. That's its population. There's more in New Zealand than there is up on the island itself. So what's the problem? Well, the problem is that New Zealand has the 3rd largest search and rescue area in the world. It costs us, I'll try and convert it into euros, around about 35,000 euros a day to send an Orion up to find people who go out fishing. Now I want you to imagine that table in front of you right now is the highest point on your island. That's it. So if you're not convinced about global warming, come and have a look with me at Tuvalu. That's it. Okay, so we've got a major problem. Kiribati, an island just to the northwest of Tuvalu, near Fiji, we have an issue there as well, where fishermen go out at night time and they can't find the way back. Why not? Well, it's only that high up the water. You go over the top of the horizon. Where do I go now? And that government, I was told only 2 days before I left New Zealand by Admiral Tony Parr, who just retired from Maritime New Zealand as the South Pacific manager. Tony says the government have promised to buy their people, if they were elected, which they were, a whole fleet of 23-foot Yamaha fiberglass boats with an outboard. But no life jackets, no radios. So it's back onto us in New Zealand to find these beggars when they go out and get lost again. So what they did, they put some big Chinese-built sky towers up, big towers with lights on, so that at least they could see where the beam was coming from and hopefully find their way back. This is the real world. I'm not making this up. This is true. I've been there. I know. So we've got a big area of concern for our search and rescue team. So working with the rigger community. So let's have a look at what we're doing. What is APRC? We're using the C section of the Scout movement in Europe at present. They've been running for 24 years now as EuroC. It's in Poland coming up very shortly, in about a fortnight's time. My colleague from Australia is going to that and be showing this to them. And we've coupled it onto them, and it's Sea Scout leaders and youth working together with in the Asia Pacific region to share and learn about safe boating activities and programs. Now, what's the problem? We had, the other day, didn't we, had a discussion about exiting the water. Do you remember that piece about people have a problem getting out of the water? The problem we face in the Pacific, of course, is the coral reefs. They vary from this high up to half the height of this room. Some of you know the story about my missing finger. Okay, coral infection. Trying to find a guy who went out in a boogie board, told not to go. We went to find him. We found his body, but we couldn't get it back because of the high waves. We marked it with a man overboard drill situation, a buoy, fishing buoy. His body is gone. We know where it is, but we can't get to him. So coral infection, if you want to see the photograph of the finger, I've got it down here. for those who are of medical background, so you can see what happens to coral when it gets into a cut. Okay? So that's why it's not missing, it's in the fridge in New Zealand, so if you come around you can have Ron's fingers or finger food. Okay. Sounds a bit gory, but I mean, I've got personal reasons also why I keep it. Okay, so we're trying to get these people together, an opportunity for seafaring adventures. Now, we use that word seafaring because we got a lot of support, particularly from Fiji, from the government there, about trying to encourage young people to go to sea. And I was very fortunate this last weekend to work at Dockland Scout Project in London, which is a marvellous place near Greenwich. One young guy came up to me and said, I'm going to sea, I've just got my qualifications. And he's a lovely guy, and I've got a young guy in New Zealand the same, and I want to put them in contact with each other. We want more people like them to come to sea as a living. So the government of Fiji particularly are very keen to get these people to sea and earn a living. Okay, so there we go, opportunity of adventures. Now, I want to get this quite clear for those who are not familiar with the Scout movement, and I know one or two have been Scouts, including Brendan and John. We're not a separate organisation. We were founded by Warrington Baden-Powell, the owner, the older brother of Robert, the Scout leader, the guy who started Scouts. And we have a connection in New Zealand. His wife was born in New Zealand in 1879, get it right, Ron. If you don't believe me, I've got a birth certificate there. We wrote the history recently, we didn't realise it. How on earth did this guy living in England marry a lady in New Zealand? And we found out that her father's occupation was settler, an old term for people just to come to New Zealand or whatever. And they're both buried in Scotland now. We've been there to see the thing. So he started it. We do it exactly as the Land Scouts do. We work together as crews, which is a patrol system. Sailing takes place on lakes, rivers and seas. And what we're trying to do now is to bring the community together, like we're talking about community involvement in drowning prevention. That's what we're talking about this morning, weren't we? Better programs for youth leaders. What we're doing next month, we're getting the American Sea Scouts across, a group of them to come to Hong Kong, and I'm going to join them, and we're going to introduce some of the American sea programs into Hong Kong. They have got 3 large water activity bases. So they've got all set up, so we're going to bring a program in to help them to develop it. And for our previous speaker, I don't know if you know Manford Chan, he's from Canada. He's coming as well. He's a good bloke. Okay, better program for your international events like conferences, training camps and regattas. We have a national regatta every 3 years in New Zealand, and we're inviting the Asia Pacific region Scouts to come this time. Very good affair, we had a wonderful time. If people are interested, I've got the video with me on that as well. The group that's formed 24 years ago, they've held the conferences around Europe, we've been to some of them. And in 2011, 200 Scouts and leaders from different countries sailed to Sweden as a flotilla, from Holland and all places like that. So that's another activity they've done. Happy and safe Scouts in the Pacific region, sharing knowledge and information, opportunities for international regattas, safety and seamanship. We're not a yacht club. We teach seamanship or seawomanship, if you like, ladies, I'm sorry, and things like that. Conference every 2 years, a bit like this. Cooperation, we started to do that already. Safe practices, program ideas. So you can see there's a whole range of things we're aiming to do. Right, this is part of the flotilla. The gentleman on the right-hand side, Ron Brown, unfortunately passed away in Denmark rather, a few years ago, but he was the founder of what we're trying to set up in the Pacific region. This is a flotilla that sailed up from Holland right away to thing there. And this is the conference, the Eurosea conference that we have. There's a guy there from Holland I recognise, a few others in that picture. This was our trip to Hong Kong last year to set up the charter, which you'll see a copy of laid on the table at the back. I didn't bring the original. And this is one of the big sea training bases they've got in Hong Kong for the Scouts there. The flag on the right-hand side is our Sea Scout Centennial flag. It's been round the world as groups celebrate, and they put the badge on it and things like that. So this is a part of a relay, if you like, to bring them together. There we are with Barbara and the guys going out to the camp they were having. Some of the boats they use. Now this is the New Zealand one. I've just stopped on this one for a moment. The boat you saw shown by John and with the Coast Guard. Do you remember that? There were two old boats you saw, the old clinker-built boats. Well, this is how our boat started. This is a fiberglass version. And we had, say, our regatta. We can row them. There's about 300 of these all together. We have mixed crews. And that's in the Rangitoto Island. That's the volcanic crater that was Island. And these are just some of the scouts that took part in that event, which was a really amazing affair. So let's take it a bit stage further then. How many people had a cup of tea this morning for breakfast? Yeah? Did you put sugar in it? Anybody? Put sugar on your... No? Oh, what? We're going to build a cutter out of sugar. There's a part of it. It's not the sugar you'd eat, it's the byproduct of sugar, but we're very conscious of the environment. And this is made by Total Energy. Some of you will know that company, based in Belgium, I think. But they've developed a very strong plastic which can be welded. And for us in the Pacific, it's very good for coral reefs. Wooden boats and fiberglass boats, I know, have spent a lot of money on getting our boats in Fiji and Cook Islands and Samoa done up. So we've now gone to a natural product, and we've got a development committee at present looking at it between Sea Cadets, Sea Scouts and the equivalent of Sea Rangers in New Zealand. So we're looking at that right now. And we've got, I think, the first run ready to go by the end of the year. What we've done, and this is to do with capsizing, we've looked at the original cutter and we're finding that we have to capsize them as part of a skill that the children have to do. So we're going to double up on the gunnel width and putting more buoyancy in that. So it can be capsized, but it's easy to get upright. So we're developing that stage. We are not changing the outside, we're changing the inside just a little bit to compensate and make the buoyancy a bit more positive. The other thing we're looking at naturally, and some of you have seen this already, is how to make a coconut life jacket. If you haven't seen it, I'll lay it on the table at the back and have a look at it. Once again, we talk about environmental issues, aren't we? We're also talking about life-saving issues, buoyancy aids. So have a look at how they do it. And that life jacket is about 3,000 years old when the first migration started from China to come through to settle Melanesia, Micronesia, and of course Polynesia. And people still know how to do it. When we put this together, Sylvia and I, we found that people knew exactly how to do this. So that's how to make one. So if you go on a holiday anywhere and a coconut falls out the tree, have a go. You see how well it floats, okay? And on the bottom here, we put, our ancestors did it. Why don't we do it today? So in other words, we're not saying, you will wear a life jacket. I'm a European Palangi, saying, you'll get a life jacket on. We're saying, your ancestors did it. What the heck's wrong with you guys today? Get one for yourselves. So as part of that, Sea Scouting in New Zealand, along with Volunteer Coast Guard, have donated over 300 very good quality second-hand life jackets. And while we're sat here today, there's a consignment of 19 on the way up to Port Vila in Vanuatu, courtesy of the shipping company. It doesn't cost us anything, it goes free. So we are working to encourage them to have the life jackets, make them available. And just recently in Port Vila when I was there, 2 P&O ships came in. Has anybody done a cruise on P&O? Anybody here today? No? My whole company? Okay. 2 ships came in, and they had to go past me where I was working on the wharf there with the development. And they were crammed with tourists, no life jackets. So I said, right, I'm taking my young scouts from Vanuatu out to see the tall ship, and they're going to have a life jacket each. Before I paid for the trip for the kids to go out, $25, about £12, I think it was, I said to the guys, life jackets, please. He said, yes, sir, here you are. I said, there's your money. So we're gradually trying to encourage them to do this. It's a very difficult thing to do. Anyway, that's the end of my presentation. It's a short one. I appreciate your attention. If there are any questions, I'm more than happy to help. And if you want to see some of the stuff, I've got it laid out on the back. And there are some videos if you want to have a look as well. Thank you for your time this morning.